We're just a few days out. Coming up Monday, do not miss the debut of Boston Globe Sports Report, a weekly show hosted by Ben Volen that dives into the most important sports stories, moments, and debates in all of Boston sports. Tune in Monday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern for the debut episode, only on Nesson, Nesson 360, and BostonGlobe.com. Welcome back in. It's Boston has entered the chat. As you can see, we've got company. Michael McCann, who is a legal expert with Sportico, a law professor with University of New Hampshire, Harvard as well. Michael, it's been a busy last really 24 hours in the NBA as we have ourselves another gambling scandal. And just to give you some of the specifics, Shams Charania from ESPN with some tweets yesterday. We will show you some of the specifics here. Again, Blazers head coach, former Celtic, by the way, Chauncey Billups. Heat guard Terry Rozier, a former Celtic as well. Both of these guys, along with Cavaliers player and coach, a former Damon Jones, all arrested as part of a pair of investigations related to illegal sports betting and rigged poker games backed by the mafia. Billups and Rozier placed on leave from their teams in the NBA. So, Michael, welcome to the program. We heard, obviously, from the press conference with federal agents yesterday. This is just the tip of the iceberg. What's next?
Yeah, it is a tip of the iceberg. To me, these are really different scenarios, right? With Rozier, we're talking about a player accused of directly changing games, sharing information involving NBA games, whereas with Billups, from what we understand, it really is about poker games that seem a little bit disconnected from the NBA. Obviously serious in that it allegedly involves the mafia. So bad, to be sure, but I feel like the Rozier scenario is more problematic for the NBA. What's next will be initial hearings where the defendants will appear, they'll plead not guilty. But I would stress this is early. We've only heard the government side. Let's see what the defendants say. And Rozier in particular, he's been under investigation for at least 2 years because his lawyer has said that he's met with federal authorities and the NBA. So why charge him now instead of before? Let's find out.
So, as you mentioned, if he's been involved or if his name's been tied to things for years, how will that impact this? Because it sounds like he probably has the more serious situation going on at the time. Like, with his name being in the mix so consistently, could they actually move forward in finding some sort of legal result if that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we don't know, for example, if he was offered a deal to testify against others. That's always a possibility. This is, some have said, why didn't the NBA catch this? Well, the NBA is a private business. It doesn't have subpoena powers. It can't threaten a witness with charging them with the crime unless they talk. There's all sorts of pressure points that the government can put. And I'll be curious to find out if, in fact, Rozier was offered some sort of deal if he testifies against others in exchange for not being charged. I have no idea if that's the case, but it strikes me that he's been in some sort of negotiation with the government, given that it's been a couple of years. So that's a long time between an investigation and a charge, particularly because the NBA has said it didn't find that he violated rules. So, if I'm Rozier's lawyers, I'm gonna say, show me the evidence. I understand that you wrote that in an indictment, but does the evidence actually corroborate? Is there other evidence that might refute some of the allegations? It will be interesting to see.
Well, like you said, the league previously cleared Rozier in this same investigation, and that's not obviously the same as being cleared by the government and the law. And so as we listen to the league, continue to preach integrity, obviously, is it possible anything was either swept under the rug, by the NBA, or conversely, this speaks to the power or lack thereof that the league has in its own internal investigations?
I don't think the league would have done anything in terms of trying to hide this. We know that they went after Jontay Porter, right? They went after Jontay Porter. They found last year that he had been involved in prop bets where he didn't play as well to further a prop bet. So the league has already established, at least to me, that they go after players when they find fault. Also, the league is run by really seasoned lawyers that I think will take evidence clearly, but also aren't going to prejudge. And it looks like with Rozier, they didn't prejudge. And they also don't want to come out swinging and find someone at fault who didn't do it, because that creates a problem with the Players Association. So to me, this is more about the NBA is just a private business. Obviously, it has a lot of money. It's powerful. It's in the news. They seem greater than just a mere business, but ultimately that's all they are. They can't force someone outside of the contractual relationship between those in the NBA, so players, referees, owners, general managers. If you're just a random person connected to someone, you're not in the jurisdiction of the NBA. The NBA can't get people to talk, can't get people to share evidence, text, emails, direct messages on social media. So I think the league is a little bit hampered, I mean, just like any other pro league, in how it can conduct investigations. Clearly, it relies on monitoring services, which is helpful. But as you said earlier, Adam, the government can be scary. The government can threaten you with a crime unless you talk. I mean, that is a really powerful device that leagues don't have.
With this specific issue per se, and you've mentioned the fact that the NBA is a private business, what are some obstacles legal-wise that, anyone will probably face trying to kind of move forward with this?
Yeah, I think let's see if there are others involved. I'm curious to see if this is just, as referenced earlier, is this the tip of the iceberg? Are we talking about one or two players? Or are we talking about 10 or 11? I mean, let's find out. Certainly, you might think, now I would say this, if the government had other players, they would have announced it yesterday, because it seems like the government timed this to coincide with the start of the season. And I'm sure if you talk, I'm not talking for the NBA, but my guess is that they would say this was designed to humiliate the league, that it was done to right as the league was starting. Everyone's focus is on the start of the season. Let's hit the NBA with these charges, including for poker games that seem really unrelated to NBA. As far as we know, Chauncey Billups could have been playing poker on his own time. It's not like the Trailblazers can monitor what all their employees are doing in their spare time. So certainly that's not to say obviously if he's working with the mafia, that's awful. But it does seem like this was kind of combined together to give a narrative. And let's see if the defense lawyers can attack that.
I just think, Michael, this whole thing is pretty messy. Obviously, I mean, the league, teams, broadcast partners, all of these groups have partnerships with sports books, with gambling entities. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, has been a longtime proponent of the legalization of sports betting, but he's also called for, more federal regulation of sports betting. He's urged sports books to, pull back, obviously, on some of the prop bets to avoid manipulation. Is that where we're heading next, ultimately? Or, in certain states, and it's upwards of almost 40 now that are legal across the country, are we going to see the markets that are available to bet change here as a result of some of these infractions?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. You're right. Silver, about a decade ago, this was before the Supreme Court's decision that let states legalize sports betting. He wrote an op-ed for the New York Times saying, legalize it, but federalize it. Have one set of rules, one set of controls, kind of an analogous argument that we hear with NIL in college sports, right? Just have one federal rule, a national approach rather than state by state. I've got to think this might accelerate that idea, in the sense that maybe the system is too complicated for compliance purposes. There are 40 states, as you mentioned, where it's legal to bet on sports, and they all have different rules. Some of them allow mobile and certain kinds of mobile bets. There are restrictions on how you can bet. There are different compliance requirements. It might make sense to have a federal approach. Now, saying that, I'm sure you're going to get emails from people in states that are involved in gaming that will say, back off, don't have the feds involved. You can't trust the feds. They don't necessarily know better. The states some states do a really good job, I think, in monitoring this. I would, New Hampshire, obviously I have a connection to the state being a professor up there. I think New Hampshire does a particularly good job with gaming issues. That doesn't mean the federal approach couldn't work, but it's tricky because some states might be better at this than others.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, definitely not the NBA's first run-in with gambling investigations. There's the documentary on Tim Donaghy and the referee scandal back in 2007. Gilbert Arenas running the illegal high-stakes gambling operation out of his house. Jonte Porter, you mentioned. Terry Rozier, obviously, now and before. Malik Beasley, currently under federal investigation still for gambling allegations. And, the theories around Michael Jordan and his first retirement. There's a lot here, and we are not done by a long shot. But we look to have you on in the future again, Michael, and continue talking about this as it all plays out. Michael McCann, thank you once again.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Michael, again, a law professor over at, again, UNH and Harvard, and legal expert with Sportico. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, this is a fascinating story. And, you know, tip of the iceberg for the government, tip of the iceberg for the conversation, tip of the iceberg maybe for us here with Boston Has Entered the Chat, because we've got a whole other hour on the way on NESN Nation. You don't want to miss it. We're done here, but we are on NESN 8 to 9 weekdays, Monday through Friday. It means the work week, I guess, over here, but not done with NESN Nation on the way in a matter of minutes. Join us there. We'll talk to you in a few.